Hi, I'm Bryan, and welcome to a special Halloween, Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead episode of Vinyl Paints. Nothing says Day of the Dead like a skulled luchador with Aztec weaponry. Some of the design elements come from Day of the Dead, Sugar Skulls, and of course, Lucha Libre. It wasn't my intentions to make this video this week. I had started on a Cel conversion of Barris and Luminara from Gendy's Clone Wars series, but I'm sharing this in the spirit of Halloween. What you're looking at is a model sheet for a project I've been working on, or more accurately, my version of a design sheet. A model sheet usually has a defined style and a finalized character look. This is more of a collection of loose sketches that I compiled on a page to help me make some choices on what the final look will be. This is rough work, so I'm taking a lot of shortcuts and working very loose and fast. For a bit of context, this is Obsidian. He is one of the co-protagonists in a supernatural luchador project called Cult of the Feathered Serpent I have been working on. He's a luchador by day, demon hunter / champion of the Feathered Serpent by night. Just a heads up, this is a bit of a trick or treat situation. I never intended to share this, so you might see some experiments on the page, but you might also see some in the camera work as well. I created this new transparent port key with the idea that I can show both the above and below view of the painting at the same time, but it's still all in the trial phase. My ultimate goal for this channel is to one day do a Cel animated film. I'm not ready to undertake that yet. I don't even think I'm ready to animate a GIF yet, or is it GIF? Either way, this is a concept art for a Cel Painted comic book that I hope will get me to that stage. I also think this might be a good chance to explain my process, or lack of one, and talk about some of the obstacles I encounter before I get into the painting process and some of the decisions I have to make while doing the painting process. One of my biggest obstacles is that I'm slow at drawing, and probably 80% of my drawings are on cue cards or tiny notebooks that I keep on my desk for taking notes. This has become a bit of a problem, mostly because the drawings on these are tiny, and the characters are tiny. And because of that, they're not often finished or fleshed out very well. And even though all my drawing friends continue to tell me over and over, work large, draw big, and carry a big sketchbook, I can't seem to make a larger sketchbook work in my day-to-day. So I end up with these, tons of these little sheets with half-finished drawings or little concepts. One of the things you probably noticed already is that none of these obsidians are done in the same style. I've never really felt I had a refined drawing style. When I say Chuck Jones, Gendy, Tim, Miyazaki, probably a very defined image comes to mind. I'll be working with other artists on this comic, and each artist is doing the page in their own style. And I wanted to give them a solid foundation of what the character looks like. But I also wanted to use this as a chance to figure out what style I want to use on my page. That's right. Not only will I be Cel painting every page, but I'll do my best to at least draw one page. I'm terrified, but also very excited by the challenge. And as you can see, I have a bunch of different ideas. Do I want to do a three-fingered hand, like Warner Brothers, kind of Merry Melodies, Looney Tunes style? Or maybe something a little bit more chibi-ish? There's other versions of him on this page where I tried to not use curves so much and try to keep him blockier. These are all things I'm hoping to figure out during this design sheet. I really think I ended up with more questions than answers doing this, and even though I really like Quetzalcoatl designed into the mask as a logo, how repeatable is that as a design element? It's easy to do when you're doing it in a big version, but when you start dealing with Cel painting, it's kind of hard on a smaller scale. I wanted to limit the time I spent on this, since this was concept art rather than a fully realized piece, but watching the footage back I realized I was a bit thin on the paint in a few areas, and I probably tried to stretch the paint out a little bit more than I should have. I just didn't want to mix more and I just wanted to make it work. And since in my head it was kind of concept art, not a full piece, I honestly didn't really care too much about getting it down to perfection levels. Looking at it here, it's not the best example of cel painting. And this is where I run into my next big question. Something that I really didn't plan out until I started painting, and I kind of wish I'd done a little bit more research into. And that's, how do I want to handle a character whose costume is mostly black? I didn't really put a lot of thought into this beforehand, but now I'm left with all sorts of questions. If I do black on black, you lose a little bit of his shape and the silhouette of the character disappears. But Spawn the animated series has shown us that can work. Do I want to do something like Batman the animated series where I use black and then a dark blue as a highlight? Will it work with purple? It doesn't. Or do I want to do gray with black and treat the gray as an implied black? I don't think I've decided anything from this design sheet, but it has helped me realize certain things I don't like and helped me move along in the process. A little bit off topic, but what's your favorite Day of the Dead animation? I was debating between Coco and Book of Life. I'll be honest, I know Coco is really good, but I'm actually a fan of Book of Life. I just kind of like the characters and the character design a little bit better. I'm feeling those Halloween Day of the Dead vibes, so let's sit back, relax, and listen to some music. Cue the spooky music. The music for this video has been provided by Sound Designer. You can find a link to them in the description or find them on Instagram or YouTube. One of the things I noticed using a clear port key, I couldn't help but wonder if anyone in the past was crazy enough to sell paint with a dog in the room. I must have cleaned that a dozen times, and I still keep seeing dog hair on the underside of the port key. I'm really glad that I decided to do this. Originally I was only going to do some sketches and then go right into the final product and just start with coloring an actual page from the comic. But cel painting is a little bit tricky. There are certain limitations and obstacles that you're going to come across, and I'm glad that I discovered them here as opposed to when I actually got to the actual comic page. The background I chose to use for the video is actually a compilation of photos I took from Graffiti Alley in Toronto. It's really a cool place where it's an entire alley just dedicated to graffiti, and every time you go back it's kind of always changing and evolving, so you never really get the same experience twice. I hope you enjoyed this early look at Obsidian. I will probably provide some updates as the comic comes together. Although I haven't really made any definitive decisions, I think I'm going to have to do a deep dive into characters with black costumes and shadows and cel animation for further inspiration, to kind of develop this idea further. Once again, thanks for watching. I'm Bryan, and happy Halloween and Dia de los Muertos.